The galaxy had many laws, but none as ironclad as this. No one shall set foot on Zerath Prime. The decree was etched into the minds of every civilization, whispered from one generation to the next. Traders avoided the system. Navigators marked it with red symbols on their star maps, and even pirates, reckless as they were, turned their ships away when their scanners picked up the broken world, drifting alone in the void. No one remembered why it was forbidden. The ban was older than the Council itself, older than half the civilizations alive today. Some said it was cursed, that the planet had swallowed fleets whole. Others whispered of an imprisoned god who would awaken if the soil was disturbed. For most, the mystery was enough to keep them away. But for humans were different. Elias Ward never meant to break the galaxy's oldest law. He was a cargo runner, an ordinary man with an ordinary ship, hauling fuel cells to a frontier station. When a sudden meteor storm shredded his vessel's engines, he was thrown into an uncharted drift. His emergency beacons flickered, his life. Support failed, and his ship was dragged down into the gravity well of a world that appeared on no human charts. He crashed hard. Metal screamed, fire roared, and when the dust settled, Elias stumbled out of the wreckage, coughing, bleeding, his boots sinking into alien soil. Only later would he learn the name of the place, Zerath Prime, the Forbidden World. The land was eerily still. Black mountains rose like the bones of titans, and skies swirled with storms that glowed faintly blue. The air was thin but breathable. Strange structures dotted the horizon, vast pillars of stone carved with symbols no translation AI could decipher. They pulsed faintly, as if aware of his presence. Elias should have been terrified. Instead, he felt drawn. He walked. Each step echoed like thunder in his ears, as though the very ground recognized the trespass, and then he heard a voice, not spoken, not external. It bloomed directly inside his mind, deep and resonant. At last, they return. Elias froze. His pulse thundered. He spun around, but the wasteland remained empty. The voice continued, slow and deliberate. "You are human. The seal is broken." The air trembled. The ground shivered beneath his boots. One of the towering pillars cracked open, revealing a chamber of light. Against all sense, Elias stepped inside. What he found shattered everything. He thought he knew about his species. The chamber walls were alive with holograms, scenes of ancient cities glittering across the stars. Not alien cities, human ones. He saw colossal fleets bearing banners of Earth, long before Earth had even discovered fire. He saw humans standing among species now extinct, guiding them, teaching them, building what would one day become the foundation of the Galactic Council. And then he saw the fall, a war older than any record tearing the stars apart. The humans. Of that era, architects of galactic civilization chose to erase themselves. They locked away their history, abandoned their empire, and seeded Earth with a simpler humanity, one that would one day rise again. Zerath Prime was not cursed. It was a vault, a tomb, a warning, and Elias, by stepping onto its soil, had awakened it. He staggered back, breath shaking, mind unraveling under the weight of the revelation. The voice returned, quieter now, almost mournful. "They feared you, would never return. But you are here." The cycle begins anew. Before Elias could speak, the chamber unleashed a burst of light skyward. A signal, a beacon. Across the galaxy, sensors screamed as the Forbidden World awoke. Fleets scrambled, empires panicked, and the Galactic Council convened in emergency. For the first time in living memory, the silence of Zerath Prime was broken. When they found him days later, Elias was surrounded by the ruins of his ship, weak but alive. Alien soldiers seized him, shackled him, dragged him before the council on charges of violating the most sacred law of the stars. They expected him to beg, to weep, to cower. Instead, Elias raised his head and spoke words that would echo across history. "I did not break your law. I revealed the truth you buried. Humans were here before all of you. We built this galaxy." Gasps filled the chamber. Denials, outrage, panic. But then the projections from Zerath Prime arrived, beamed directly into the council's core. The same visions Elias had seen, proof undeniable. The pillars of history the galaxy had forgotten. The room fell silent. And in that silence, empires trembled. For if humans were the true architects, then what did that make every other species? Guests, successors, pretenders. Elias was no longer a prisoner. He was a herald. Across the stars, oppressed worlds rose up, claiming the forgotten truth as their weapon. If humans had built civilization once, perhaps they were destined to lead it again. Empires fractured, alliances cracked, and old rulers found their power slipping through their claws. The galaxy was never the same. One man, one accident, one forbidden step had torn the veil of lies from history. Elias Ward did not set out to change the galaxy. But when he stepped onto Zerath Prime, he carried with him the weight of a truth long buried, a truth that would ignite rebellion, topple tyrants, and carve a new destiny for humankind. And so, the galaxy whispered a new legend. Beware the human, who walks where none dare tread. For he carries not only his footsteps, he carries the return of a forgotten empire. The galaxy was old, so old that most species no longer remembered their beginnings. Empires rose, fell, and rose again, rewriting history as though the past could be erased. But there were always fragments, maps etched into forgotten walls, broken tablets that hinted at places no one dared speak of. Dr. Mara Keene had spent her life chasing those fragments. She was not a soldier, not a commander, not anyone who belonged in the circles of power. She was an archaeologist, a woman obsessed with the whispers of lost civilizations. Where others saw ruins, she saw unanswered questions, and every unanswered question gnawed at her until she could no longer sleep. Among those questions, one burned, brightest, Kalor 9. It was the name scratched on countless forbidden records only to be censored, erased, or declared false. Whenever she asked her colleagues, they turned pale and changed the subject. The Galactic Council had outlawed any approach to its system. Ships were turned away, scouts disappeared, and still, Mara could not let it go. She had to know why. Her journey began in secrecy. She acquired an old survey vessel under a false name, charted a course through unpatrolled sectors, and braved the emptiness that most sane travelers avoided. Weeks of silence followed, weeks of second-guessing, weeks of wondering if she had thrown her career and her life into a black hole. Until at last, her sensors whispered, "Planet detected, Kalor 9. She thought she would find a barren rock, another forgotten grave in the void. But when her ship slipped into orbit, the breath caught in her throat. The world below was alive. Forests shimmered with bioluminescent leaves, oceans glowed with an inner light, and vast spirals of stone rose across the continents like deliberate markings. It was not dead. It was waiting. And against every warning etched into galactic law, Mara descended. The air was heavy when she stepped out. Not toxic, but dense, as though the planet itself pressed down on her shoulders. The ground pulsed faintly beneath her boots. She had walked countless alien worlds, studied ruins older than her own species. But this was different. This was not discovery. This was trespass. The moment she set foot on the soil, the world responded. The ground trembled. The air thickened. Vines uncurled and reached for her, not to strangle but to guide. The planet was alive, Not just alive, aware. And then came the voice. Another comes to be judged. It was not in her ears. It bloomed inside her skull, deep and vast. Older than any language she knew. Her heart pounded. Her rational mind screamed to run. But something stronger held her still. Curiosity. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. The voice rumbled, calm, eternal. "We want nothing. You are the one who came. You will face the test." The test began without warning. The world shifted around her, reality bending like water. One moment she stood in a forest. The next she stood in a desert of burning suns. Towers of fire rose around her, voices screamed, storms howled. She fell to her knees, clutching her head as her body screamed with pain. It was not an illusion. It was a trial. The planet was showing. Her fear, despair, agony. Every weakness of her soul laid bare, and yet Mara did not break. She remembered long nights alone in archives, mocked by peers, laughed at for chasing myths. She remembered every door slammed in her face, every grant denied, every dream dismissed. Her whole life had been a trial. This was just another. Through the storm, she rose, and the vision shifted. Now she stood in light. Before her, vast beings of stone and flame towered. They were not gods. They were not demons. They were guardians, constructs of the planet itself. One stepped forward, its voice shaking the air. For eons, we waited. Many came. All failed. Only humans endure. Mara's breath caught. Humans? You mean me? You are not the first. Your kind was chosen long ago. This world was made as a crucible, to test, to judge, to prepare. Her chest tightened. Prepare for what? The Guardian's eyes blazed. To lead. The truth struck harder than any storm. The forbidden world was not a prison. It was a forge. Civilizations across the galaxy had tried to claim it, to survive its judgment, and all had failed. But humanity, fragile, reckless, stubborn humanity, endured. The Guardians had waited for a human to return, and Mara had answered. The constructs lowered their colossal heads, not in menace, in recognition. The galaxy has forgotten. It has grown stagnant. The council rots from within. But the cycle turns. The test is passed. The new Guardians rise. When Mara returned to her ship, she was no longer just a scholar. She carried with her the mark of Kalor 9. It glowed faintly on her skin, a pattern of light no instrument could erase, and the galaxy noticed. Sensors across the stars had recorded the awakening of the forbidden world. Fleets scrambled, empires trembled, and whispers spread. A human has walked where none survived. The council tried to silence her. They branded her a criminal, an outlaw, a madwoman. But she had the truth, and the truth could not be buried again. World after world began to listen. Species tired of old rulers saw in humanity something different. Not conquerors, but survivors. Not rulers by force, but by will. Mara had not set out to change history. She had only wanted answers. But by stepping onto Kalor 9, she proved humanity's place in the grand design. Not as wanderers, not as trespassers, as guardians. And so, the galaxy trembled at a new truth. The forbidden world had tested them all. Only humans passed. And because of one woman's steps, the future itself now belonged to Earth. The galaxy had many forbidden places, but none feared as much as Vera. It was not a dead world, nor cursed by storms, nor poisoned by radiation. No, the terror of Vera was older than those simple horrors. Legends claimed that in its hollow core lay the seed of endless war, a weapon so terrible that entire empires had perished to contain it. The Galactic Senate decreed no one was to approach it. Patrol fleets ringed its system. Any ship that drifted too close was annihilated without warning. For millennia, the planet slumbered in silence, until a war brought it roaring back into destiny. Captain. Adrian Holt hadn't meant to land there. He was a soldier, not a scholar. His ship had been part of a desperate skirmish along the rim, a battle already lost before it began. His fleet was torn apart, his escape pod flung like debris into the void. When he awoke, bruised and choking, his pod had crashed on an alien surface. The skies were black. The soil was metallic, humming faintly, as if alive with electricity. Adrian limped from the wreckage, scanning the horizon, only to realize where he was. His pod's computer displayed one word in stark, dreadful clarity: Vera, the Forbidden World. Every instinct screamed at him to leave, but there was no ship, no fleet, no rescue. He was alone, stranded, trapped. And then the whispers began. At first, he thought it was concussion, a ringing in his ears, a distortion of memory, but the whispers grew clearer, louder, speaking in voices that were not his own. Another bearer arrives, another chance for the seed to awaken. His hand went to his weapon. "Who's there?" The wind itself answered, carrying words like blades. "We are memory. We are the echo of all wars fought. Step deeper, human, and claim what was always meant for you." Drawn by something he could not name, Adrian wandered the wasteland. Metallic structures rose around him, half buried, half living. They pulsed, with light when he approached, as if sensing him. The whispers guided him toward a cavern that plunged into the planet's depths. Inside, the walls were not stone but machines, vast, ancient circuits that still hummed with power, and at the heart of it all, a sphere. It floated in the air, black as void, pulsing with energy that seemed alive. When Adrian approached, it reacted, not with hostility, but recognition. The whispers became a roar. The war seed, the archive of all conflict, the mind of strategy, the curse of blood. Take it and know. Adrian hesitated. Every tale he had heard told him this was death, that the seed consumed all who touched it, that no being could survive the knowledge of endless war, but he was already dying, stranded, alone, forgotten. With trembling hands, he reached out. The moment his fingers brushed the sphere, the world changed. A flood of visions slammed into him. He saw wars spanning eons, battles waged before his species had even walked upright, fleets colliding, worlds burning, civilizations tearing each other apart in fury. He saw weapons that split suns, tactics so brilliant they bordered on divine, betrayals so cruel they shattered empires. Every strategy, every failure, every triumph, all of it poured into him. He screamed, collapsing to his knees as his mind threatened to fracture. The seed did not merely show him history, it wove it into him. The knowledge was his now, the reflexes, the instincts, the brutal clarity of war itself. And beneath the agony, one truth burned brightest. The seed had been waiting for humans. When Adrian staggered out of the cavern, he was no longer the same man. His eyes burned with a strange light. His every thought moved with the precision of an army. His heartbeat drummed like a war drum. The whispers followed him still, but now they were silent companions, absorbed into his mind. He was the vessel, the bearer, and the galaxy was not ready. A patrol fleet found him weeks later. They expected to recover a broken soldier. Instead, they faced a man who could anticipate their every move before they made it. He slipped through. Their capture, with impossible precision, hijacked a vessel and vanished into the dark. When he returned, it was not as a fugitive, but as a commander. With knowledge no living strategist could match, Adrian led human fleets to victory after victory, dismantling enemies that had dominated for centuries. Word spread like wildfire. A human had claimed the war seed. Some species called him a monster, others a savior. But all agreed he was unstoppable. The Galactic Senate convened in fear. They whispered of purging Earth, of striking before humanity grew too strong. But by then, it was too late. Adrian's strategies had already spread through human command. His knowledge, once locked in Vera, was now a living force shaping every battle. And yet, Adrian himself was haunted. For in the quiet of night, when the wars were won and fleets celebrated, he felt the whispers gnawing at his soul. The seed was not just knowledge. It was hunger. It wanted war. It lived for conflict, and now it lived inside him. Was he still human? Or was he the seed's prisoner? He did not know, but he knew this. The galaxy could never return to what it was. One man. One forbidden step. One choice to touch the sphere. Adrian Holt carried within him the curse of endless war and the salvation of his people. And across the stars the galaxy trembled. For where once Vera slept in silence, now it had spoken. Through a human. And nothing, not the Senate, not the empires, not even the stars themselves, would ever silence it again.